Someone who really,
really
likes the
likes the
environment is called the environmentalist. Do you want me to say
Let
that
me say
English
this
word
English word again.
again? Environmentalist.
Environmentalist.
We hardly
We
say
hardly
the
say
end,
the
by the way.
end, by
So
the
if I
way.
say the
If I say the
environment,
environment,
you can hear
you
me
can
say
hear me
the
say
end,
the
the end that
this
comes right
end that
before the
comes right
end,
for
the
the end.
environment.
Environment.
But it's kind
This
of
is
very
kind of
soft.
very soft.
Environmentalist.
Environmentalist.
So,
So,
environmentalist is not an
environmentalist
official
is not an
term.
official term.
It's just someone who likes the
who likes the
environment
environment
and has a lot of time to try and do things to take care of the environment. So an environmentalist is someone who thinks the natural world should be protected and does everything they can to do that. So they are an environmentalist.
So
The
environmentalist.
official term for someone who studies the environment would be an environmental scientist. Okay, so environmental science is the formal study of the environment by environmental scientists. I'm getting tired of saying the word environmental. It's a hard word to say, even for English speakers. We have a funnier term. This used to be somewhat of a negative term, but I think it has more of a positive connotation now. We sometimes call people tree huggers. You can see that this man is hugging a tree. Sometimes people who like the environment can be referred to in a joking or fun way as tree hugger. It's not totally polite. Let me put it this way. I could say I'm an environmentalist. I'm a tree hugger. I could proudly say that. But you might not want to call me a tree hugger because I might find it a little bit offensive. So it's an interesting term. It's kind of a fun term for someone who likes the environment. I'm going to talk about things that are in the category of being bad for the environment. So there's two ways to talk about the environment. You can talk about things that are bad for the environment and things that are good for the environment. This sounds like a really simple phrase to refer to things that are bad for the environment, but it's literally how we talk about things. We'll say, oh, that's bad for the environment. You shouldn't drive that really old car because that's bad for the environment. So that is the phrase we use when we talk about things that are bad for the environment. Definitely barrels of waste that spill on the ground, that's definitely bad for the environment. So the first thing that is bad for the environment is pollution. Pollution is when we put things into the air or we put things into the environment that don't belong there. And it's when we put things into the environment in great quantity. So the smoke that comes out of smokestack of a factory can be pollution. You can have pollution coming out of the exhaust of your car. Even something like throwing garbage into the ditch or on the side of the road is considered pollution. Littering is also pollution. This is the verb. The verb is to pollute. So pollution is the noun. There is a lot of pollution in some cities. People tend to pollute and factories pollute when they put things into the environment. And definitely anything we do that has a negative impact on the environment is considered pollution. Or anything we put into the environment that has a negative environment. Emissions are definitely bad for the environment. For some reason, when we talk about cars and trucks, the exhaust that comes out is referred to emissions. Okay? Currently in North America and many other countries in the world, we're trying to reduce our emissions. They're trying to create cars that have less harmful emissions that come out of the exhaust pipe. So basically, when you have a gas engine or a diesel engine, it creates pollution. Okay? So the less emissions that come out, the more we can reduce the emissions, the less we pollute the environment. Another thing that has a harmful effect or something that is bad for the environment is deforestation. So when you have a forest and when you cut the trees down for lumber or for firewood, eventually it looks like this, and we call it deforestation. In Canada, we have a lot of deforestation. But I'll talk a little bit later about how we try to make sure we replace trees as we cut them down. But Canada is definitely that is guilty of cutting down many trees. There are a lot of other countries in the world that do this. Canada has a lot of trees, and so we do cut down a lot of trees in order to make lumber. That's the wood that you use to build houses. And we do cut down a lot of trees still, sometimes for firewood. Some people do use wood as firewood as well. So definitely deforestation is one of the things that is bad for the environment. We have global warming, which we could also refer to as climate change. So scientists have been making note of the fact that the average temperature around the globe, the average temperature on Earth seems to be rising. In the last 20 or 30 years, it's gotten a lot worse. And global warming has a lot of bad effects on the planet. It changes weather patterns. It causes things like icebergs to melt. So global warming is a problem that needs to be dealt with. And climate change is probably a newer term for it, because not only is the planet getting warmer, but there's other things that are happening to the weather and to the climate. There are more heavy rainstorms. There are more extreme weather events. I'll talk a bit more about that later. But we do use the term global warming and the term climate change almost interchangeably when we're talking about how the environment is changing. Okay? So you'll notice people will go to a summit, and the summit will be about climate change. So that will be a term you'll see in the news from time to time. Okay, one of the reasons why there is pollution is because we burn fossil fuels. So fossil fuels are fuels that are created deep in the earth. Oil is probably the best example of fossil fuels. We drill for oil. We take oil out of the ground. We refine oil into things like gas or diesel. If you're learning British English, it would be petrol. But fossil fuels, when you burn them, create heat, and they create emissions. And so fossil fuels, once turned into gas or diesel fuel, we burn them in our cars and trucks in order to drive around. And in doing so, we create pollution, which has an effect on the environment. It's probably one of the biggest things that human beings do in terms of affecting the environment. So greenhouse gases are gases that we release into the atmosphere that are bad for the environment. Greenhouse gases, I don't know all of them, but it's carbon dioxide is one of the gases. I think methane and nitrous oxide, maybe even ozone. I think carbon dioxide is the biggest greenhouse gas. And what greenhouse gases do is they let the sunlight through, but they reflect heat or infrared heat back to the earth. I think. I'm not a scientist, so don't quote me on this. But the greenhouse gases form a blanket in the sky around the earth that helps keep the earth warm. The problem is, as we put more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, we're starting to keep the planet too warm. The blanket's getting a little bit too big because of our pollution. So again, some pretty big words in there. Greenhouse gases come from cars and factories. And they are gases like carbon dioxide and methane. Those are the two biggest, I think. I'm having trouble remembering my science class from. The ozone layer is a little bit different. It's a layer of what's called the ozone, and it actually stops certain ultraviolet light from getting to the planet. So it's a little bit different than the greenhouse gases. But those two things together make up our atmosphere. The atmosphere is all the air around the Earth. And in order for humans to survive on this planet, the atmosphere needs to stay relatively the same. A certain amount of nitrogen and oxygen and carbon dioxide. And if we mess it up through pollution, it could have dangerous effects on all of us. Hazardous waste. So we have toxic waste, we have hazardous waste, we have industrial waste. This is any kind of waste that's produced by a factory or in manufacturing. Okay? So that's a
So
big
that's a
difference.
big difference.
Let's see.
Let's
American
see.
English with this guy. In
American
Maine,
this
most
guy,
bottles and
Maine's
cans
most-
can be redeemed for 5 cents.
for
Very
5
cool.
cents.
Milk
Very
jugs
cool.
cannot be
Milk jugs
returned
cannot
for
be
any money.
returned for any money.
That's why we
That's
put it in
why we
bags
put
here in
in
Canada.
the basket.
So you can recycle the bag. Anyways, let me get back. There are many kinds of waste produced by factories. So again, hazardous waste, industrial waste, toxic waste. We even have nuclear waste from nuclear power plants. And all of this needs to be disposed of properly. If you just dump hazardous waste into a river or lake or stream, or just on the ground, it's bad for the environment. So that's one of the things that most countries are trying to get under control, to reduce the amount of hazardous waste and other types of waste that goes into the environment. We also have household